The Biden administration changing course at the border. Some migrant families who do not qualify for asylum will now be turned away. The Trump-era policy known as expedited removal allows immigration officials to remove migrants without a hearing before an immigration judge. It's happening as drugs crossing the border reach record highs, with nearly 5,000 pounds of fentanyl seized this year alone. Joining me now, Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes. Attorney General, good to see you. The turnabout in the issue of expedited removal, do you think that this is a step in trying to create some sort of border security by the Biden administration?
It's a step in the right direction, Dagan, after many, many missteps along the way that have really opened up our borders and created a de facto open border system. And you alluded to it, that the problem with that from a law enforcement standpoint is that cartels in Mexico are just sending illegal and illicit fentanyl and carfentanil in the droves right through the border. And it's a huge burden on all of us, and it affects us whether you're a border state physically or not. Essentially, we're all border states because that illicit activity comes directly up the southern border, up our highways, and it's in our backyards, Dagan. And right now, more than ever, we need to play defense, and we need an aggressive defense. To use a football analogy, I mean, the cartels are literally on the goal line, knocking at the door, and up until now, the Biden administration has allowed them to just walk the ball into our backyards. It's frightening. The amounts are staggering. The percentages, Dagan, of illegal smuggling, just of fentanyl alone, this highly toxic and lethal synthetic opioid, it's 355% over last year, 4,000% increase in illicit smuggling of fentanyl and carfentanil over the last 2 years.
Liz Peek is here. Liz, jump in.
So you mentioned that this was a good first step for the Biden administration. What would you like to see them do next? What more can be done? I mean, forgive my cynicism, but I'm assuming this is all in response to polling that shows that Americans are really fed up with this surge of people entering our country illegally. But what next should the Biden administration do?
There are so many things, not to be evasive. I could take, hours talking about all of the different policies that the Biden administration could use to strengthen our borders. But I do want to just focus again on the impact that this is having, especially in light of this. We just settled historic multi-billion-dollar settlement against drug distributors and a manufacturer, which is finally some good news for Americans who've been dying in record numbers. This opioid epidemic is unbelievable, and the worst killer in the opioid epidemic right now is fentanyl and carfentanil. And without more aggressive border enforcement, which again it's increasing the ability of border agents to do their jobs without so many restrictions. I think the Biden administration had 94 different executive orders on immigration, and many of them weakened our ability. You just mentioned the ability to hold asylees until their cases were heard and we could make the determination. Well, finally, the Biden administration realized the wrong-mindedness of turning back the Trump policy. So, Dagan, so many things, but again, in the context of what is going on, this is a huge threat to us. It's the #1 killer of American lives. And carfentanil, 10,000 times more lethal than morphine. Fentanyl, 100 times more lethal. And the cartels are taking precursors from China, they're assembling it down in Mexico, and they're jamming it up. And if we don't play a much more aggressive defense, we are going to continue to lose American lives at an unacceptable and tragic rate.
You mentioned that Utah was part of one of the states was part of the $26 billion opioid settlement. Under the agreement, the companies are required to reform the industry so this type of addiction epidemic can't happen again. Tell us about what you're going to do with the money that you received from that settlement.
Sure. To be clear, none of that money is going to recompense families for lives lost. All of that money, there's nothing you could pay to restore even one life that was lost. This money instead is going to two things primarily. One, for prevention, to make sure that we don't lose another generation of Americans. So education and prevention on one side, and the other for recovery and treatment for those Americans currently who are struggling in the cycle of addiction, who are struggling against the disease of addiction. And there's so many. So this money will deploy these billions and billions of dollars out through our nation, particularly to those areas hardest hit. And we believe that this is, Dagan, finally some good news in a very, very tragic and sad tale.
Attorney General Sean Reyes, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Dagan.
We'll see you again soon.